HomeCare.com. I'm Rod Tanner.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants. It's time for Health Futures with Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you, and I'm your host, Bob Roth. And indeed, it's Friday. We come at you live every Friday right here from the Money Radio studios here in the Scottsdale Air Park at 1510 a.m., 105.3 FM, and the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. And it's hard to believe we're roaring into March. It's March the 1st. And we actually have some decent weather for a change, because the last time I was on, we were in the 30s or low 40s. And Wes is shaking his head because we were playing raindrops are falling on our head. I mean, it was raining, it was snowing. The snow's now gone off the McDowells, and it really looks like it is high time for spring training, which just started here. We got a lot of visitors here in town, and all is good. Well, if you're just tuning in for the very first time, our show is called Health Futures, and the reason it is called Health Futures is because our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. And how do we do our show? We bring extraordinary guests to the show. We're in our 6th year. We've done about 280 shows, and I have the privilege of bringing physicians in, specialty docs in. I bring in financial advisors, lawyers, you name it, anything that relates to our older adult population, and they talk to you, our listening audience, about how they assist individuals with the challenges they may be dealing with, how they prepare with those challenges. And today is no different. Today I have this incredible guest. I'm building this crescendo up, and his name is Dr. Kevin Ladin. Can I call you Kevin?
You sure can.
Kevin, welcome to the show. That's
a heck of an introduction. I appreciate that very much.
Well, you know, and I appreciate you being on the show. And, you know, Kevin is what they call a physiatrist. Now,
that's right.
That is a mouthful. And, you know, for people that don't know what a physiatrist is a physical medicine and rehabilitation physician. And
correct.
And if I can describe it, is also known as a physiatrist. They treat a wide variety of medical conditions affecting the brain, spinal cord, nerves, bones, joints, ligaments, muscles, and tendons.
All of the above.
So you are officially a pain doc.
I am, actually. So a physiatrist, that's my primary medical specialty. My subspecialty, in which I'm board certified as well, is pain medicine. So we sometimes refer to it as pain management. It's officially known as pain medicine, but we treat a wide range of conditions, anything related to pain, both acute but mainly chronic pain.
Chronic pain.
Correct.
All right. And we have lots of older adults that are in chronic pain.
Yeah, that's unfortunately part of the human condition as we get older.
And would you say that a vast majority of your clients or patients that you serve are older adults?
Yeah, it's definitely a preponderance of the patients I see. Most are going to be over the age of 50, and a majority of those individuals are going to be older than 60. So, yeah, I would say my patient population is definitely skewed toward older folks, yeah.
And for us, with this show that we host, we talk about the older adult population and how we can help them. You know, I recently came across this article, and I wanted just to read an excerpt from it, and certainly wanted to get Kevin's perspective on it, and that is, according to the 2017 Kaiser Foundation study, 7 in 10 Americans hope to die at home.
Yeah.
But half die in nursing homes and hospitals, and more than a tenth are cruelly shuttled from one to the other in their final 3 days.
Very true.
Pain is a major barrier to a peaceful death, with nearly half of dying Americans suffering from uncontrolled pain.
Yeah, that's very true as well.
Nobody I know would love to die in a soulless confines of an ICU, but more than a quarter of Medicare members cycle through one in their final month,
Right.
and a fifth of Americans die in ICUs.
That's right.
And, you know, the one piece that really resonated with me is half of dying Americans suffer from uncontrolled pain. It doesn't have to be that way, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And, you know, we live in a day and age now where we have things we can do about that. There are options for people, many of which are underutilized, under-recognized, inadequately addressed, and quite honestly, there's another unfortunate situation that's going on in our society right now, which I think is adversely impacting people who suffer with chronic pain.
Let's talk about that.
Sure, they are. I would characterize it as the unfortunate victims of that in an unanticipated way. So they're kind of collateral damage, if you will, in the current opioid epidemic, which we can talk about as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are the collateral damage and,
Right.
and really the unintended consequence when you really think about it, because so many are in such pain but can't get relief because they think that if I take an opioid, I'm going to be addicted.
Right. And that's unfortunate. You know, we've really come full circle over the last few years. When I was in training back in the early 90s, we were trained as pain specialists to treat patients humanely and adequately for their pain, and who, we always knew that opioids have the potential to be abused. But if they're used responsibly and appropriately, they're very important drugs in managing chronic pain. They're extremely effective in many cases, and they are often the only option we have for patients with certain conditions. In the elderly population in particular, a lot of people can't tolerate other drugs. They either can't take drugs like anti-inflammatory drugs because they may have other medical conditions that prevent them from being able to use those drugs. And oftentimes opioids really are the only drugs that are effective in that population. And as a result, we're really oftentimes required to use those drugs, yet people fear them. And I think that's being, unfortunately, reinforced by the current political climate that exists around opioid therapy.
I think everything really boils down to education.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Yes.
And if you know that you can get relief from this, and certainly know that maybe your condition's temporary, you don't have to feel like you can't take it because you're going to become an addict.
That's true. Again, I think it comes down to education. But I also think we're dealing right now with a political climate in this country that is anti-opioid.
And then you couple that with the fact that we're aging at such a rapid rate.
Right.
You know, you're looking at 65-year-olds come next year, 2020. Right. We're going to have 56 million in this country. By 2030, there'll be 88 million. Or 2050, there'll be 88 million, almost double.
Right.
Well, we're up against a break here. We're down our first segment. I told you, Kevin, it runs really fast.
Sure does.
You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I've got my guest, Dr. Kevin Ladin, a physiatrist here in the studio. We're talking about pain and pain management. Stick around. We'll be right back.
sunshine. You might as well be walking on the sun.
Are you sick and tired of hearing, don't buy an annuity until you've spoken to the so-called experts? If so, call 800-957-5604, extension 200, to learn the concept of a principal-protected, low-cost, new generation annuity and the various options. Listen to Secured Financial Solutions every Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m. on this station to prevent a derailed retirement and from purchasing the wrong annuity, especially the high-risk, high-fee variable annuity and complex proprietary index annuities. Secured Financial Solutions will help you understand the difference between true stated guarantees and non-guaranteed returns. Call 800-957-5604, extension 200, and visit dreamretire.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, and Registered Investment Advisor. VCM and Secured Financial Solutions, LLC are independent of each other. Annuities are insurance products, backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the insuring insurance company. Information provided is not intended as tax or legal advice and should not be relied on as such. You are encouraged to seek tax or legal advice from an independent professional.
Hey everybody, Mark Asher here with a story I think you all love and respect. You know, many times we hear about fathers turning the family business over to their sons, but it's not every day we hear about the daughters who end up running the family business. We are lucky here in the Valley as we have that very story with the Lund Mortgage Team. Let me introduce you to my friend, the CEO of the Lund Mortgage Team, Lisa Lund.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, Lisa, your dad, Stan, was one of the best in the mortgage business and started the company when you were just a young girl. How proud are you today to own the Lund Mortgage Team?
I'm extremely proud and honored. I was able to work with my father side by side for 16 years before he unfortunately passed away in 2014. In that time, he taught me how to run a business with honesty and integrity. My dad believed in handshakes, face-to-face interaction, and most importantly, putting the client first. Today, the Lund Mortgage Team continues to carry on this personal touch. My family would love to help your family with any of your mortgage needs.
Family owned and operated. Call the Lund Mortgage Team today, 623-875-9940.
Brought to you by Blue Emu. Blue Emu supports healthy muscles and joints. Blue Emu works fast and you won't stink.
My life, my life, my life, my life in the sunshine.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I'm your host, Bob Roth. And we're on the second segment. And if you're just tuning in, I got Dr. Kevin Ladin here in the studio. He's a physiatrist, otherwise known as a pain doctor. And if you missed the first segment, we were talking about how our older adult population, nearly half of them die in severe pain. And it doesn't have to be that way. In our first segment also, we talked about opioids. If you want to catch our first segment, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button, the drop down. Third button down is radio show. You can catch this show and about 280 others that we've been bringing to you for the past 6 years. So, Kevin.
Yes.
Pain. It's one of those things that you can measure, someone's blood pressure. You can measure somebody's pulse ox. It is such a subjective measurement.
Very
How
true.
much pain is somebody in? And I think that's where... it's really hard as a practicing physician, a specialist like you are. I think everybody deals with pain very differently. Some can tolerate extreme pain, some cannot. It's got to be really hard from your perspective to really be able to diagnose how much pain somebody's in.
That's correct.
You can do the diagnostic testing, X-rays and CT scans and MRIs, but I hats off to you. I mean, you're able to practice your profession based on how somebody's telling you how they feel.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really good point. That we don't have, I like to say, we don't have a pain scan. We have brain scans.
Right.
We have all kinds of other scans and tests, but there's no test for pain, unfortunately. And as a result, we consider pain to be subjective, meaning it's an experience. It's an all-encompassing experience. It's both a symptom, but it's also an entire experiential phenomenon. So it's something that people are unfortunately, they talk about pain, but there's no way for a doctor to verify it other than what they're told by the patient. And as a result, it's often very hard for doctors to determine whether the patient is really in pain, like they say, or they're just maybe experiencing something else other than pain that is manifesting as physical pain. But as a result, it's very important that an individual who's having chronic pain meet with a pain specialist, because we are trained not only to recognize pain when it's there, but also to know how to treat it appropriately. A lot of times primary care doctors don't necessarily take pain as seriously as a pain specialist would, because they're not trained in that area.
Right. And you know, we talked about in the first segment about the addiction and the opioid epidemic and how politicians have jumped on this. You know, if you are addicted, doesn't mean you're an addict and you were pursuing a drug, a narcotic to get high on. You know, some people accidentally do become addicted, but the addiction, they're in pain too.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's got to be a hard thing to really be able to delineate between those that are having that addiction pain and those that are really in pain.
That's true. And, you know, the term pain we use oftentimes in a way that's has multiple meanings. So there's emotional pain, and people can be in emotional pain due to any number of factors, but there's also physical pain, and that's the kind of pain that we're talking about when we're dealing with pain management.
Right.
Addiction is certainly painful in an emotional way, and people have, and there's a need for treatment for that as well. But I think it's important to differentiate between addiction and dependency.
Right.
When you're on an opioid, you will become physically dependent on that drug after a certain amount of time. But there's other drugs that are associated with dependence as well. A good example of that would be an antidepressant medication. You can't just stop an antidepressant after you've been on it for a while. You have to taper off of it. And the same would apply to an opioid.
Right.
That doesn't mean necessarily that someone's addicted to the drug. Most people who are on opioids never become addicted. They take them appropriately as prescribed, and they form a physical dependency to that drug. But that's easily overcome by simply tapering them off of it if at some point they need to come off the drug. So I think people often confuse the two.
Right.
They think that if they take an opioid, they're automatically going to be addicted to it. And I have to explain to them, no, that's not true. You may become physically dependent, but that's an easy thing to overcome by just simply, if you need to come off of it at some point, we taper the patient off. And that's how we overcome that issue.
You know, I oftentimes talk about myself here on the show. So HIPAA gets thrown out the door. And, you know, I actually saw you a little more than 2 years ago.
Correct.
And I was suffering from severe neck pain. And I'd been playing golf over in Monterey in the cold and rain. And I had this lightning bolt that was just going from my neck all the way down my spine. And it was like no pain I'd ever received before in my life. And
I do remember that.
You were able to help me. And, you know, one of the things that you did for me was, and I'll never forget, you examined me and you felt like you had a good idea where it was stemming from. And it was a trigger point, and you gave me a trigger point injection. And I will tell you, I mean, I got out of that pain almost instantaneously. It was remarkable, and it never did come back. I would imagine you see a lot of this.
Yeah, and that's actually, I appreciate the positive accolades. Yeah, it's important when we deal with a pain syndrome or a pain condition. The most important thing is diagnosing it correctly.
Right.
If someone comes in and they're in pain and the physician doesn't necessarily understand how to accurately pinpoint the source of the pain, then it really doesn't matter what we do. We're not going to be able to treat it effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So the key is really making an accurate diagnosis. That's always the number one most important thing. And then once we've done that, we can design a treatment that's going to be effective for that particular type of pain.
Awesome. You know, I want to, as we get ready to close our second half here, our second segment, getting ready to halftime, to our listening audience, if you are feeling pain, and it is something that is chronic, and it's something that is somewhat debilitating, get in to see your primary care physician. That goes without saying, right, Kevin? I mean, they got to get in to see their physician.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't try to self-medicate. And many people are taking lots of ibuprofen. They're taking Tylenol. Maybe they're drinking alcohol or using other substances. You need to get in to see your primary care physician.
I would agree. And if the pain is the type of pain that is ongoing, and oftentimes primary care docs, they do their best to try to diagnose the condition, but they may not get the relief they're looking for, ask for a referral to a pain specialist.
Right.
We're trained to understand how to work these problems up and treat them effectively.
Well, real quick, I want to kind of tee up our second half. So before I tee up the second half, tell me just real quickly about your training.
Sure. So I went to undergraduate school at Penn State.
We are
Penn State,
and they're coming back.
They are. They went through some adversity for a while.
They did,
but they're coming back. I went to medical school in Pennsylvania at Medical College of Pennsylvania, and then I did my residency training at Cornell University, and I completed that in 1992.
That's in New York City, right?
That's in New York City.
Because I went to Ithaca College, and Cornell's in Ithaca, but I knew their med school was in New York City.
New York City. And
how'd you land here?
Interesting. I have a cousin who lives here and moved here in the 70s. And I came out here, probably in the mid to late 80s to visit and just fell in love with the area.
Yeah, so did I. That's wonderful. And I'm teeing up our second half because, Kevin, you and I have known one another a while. And you're somewhat of a rock star, a celebrity. So when we come back, Wes, I'm going to have him play a little clip from a television show. Some of you may remember it was called That's Incredible. And that show was hosted by John Davidson,
Kathy Lee Crosby, and
Fran Tarkenton. Yeah,
it's going back a long time ago.
It is going back, but it kind of really talks about your heritage. And you know what? So many of our listening audience are parents, grandparents, and they want nothing but the best for their children. And I'll leave it at that. I mean, nothing but the best. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. Now you got to stick around for the second half. It's halftime here. I got Dr. Kevin Ladin here in the studio, and he is helping us with pain and how to deal with pain and what is real pain and what is maybe not so real. So, stick around. We're going to talk a little bit about pain, and we're going to learn a little bit about Kevin Ladin and his stardom on television. Everyone has that 15 minutes of fame. You got yours.
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah.
We'll be right back. You're listening to Health Futures.
As we reach the bottom of the hour, we pause for a look at the world's news. Then we're back with Money Talk. We're Money Radio 1510 AM and 105.3 FM.
The Global Chemical Weapons Watchdog says it's found reasonable grounds that chlorine was used as a weapon in an attack on the Syrian town of Douma last year. The United States, Britain, and France blame Syrian government forces for it and launched a punitive airstrike. Washington State Governor Jay Inslee is the latest Democrat to run for president, though he's the first to say his campaign will center on climate change.
We went to the moon and created technologies that have changed the world. Our country's next mission must be to rise up to the most urgent challenge of our time, defeating climate change.
White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett said today he believes that climate change could threaten economic growth. Saudi Arabia has revoked the citizenship of Osama bin Laden. He's the son of the late al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. On Wall Street, the Dow is up more than 110 points. I'm Mike Moss.
Beep's coming. You know what to do.
Hey, I'm gonna just rip this Band-Aid off. We need to break up. You're not good for me. I'm always sweaty and uncomfortable around you, and I'm not getting any benefits from this relationship. You're just a basic memory foam mattress. I deserve better. And before you ask, yes, there is someone else. I've been seeing the purple mattress online for a while now. Don't blame yourself. How can you compete with a bed that totally supports me, hugs my pressure points, and sleeps so effortlessly cool? Not to mention the 100-night trial and free shipping. Now that's a bed with benefits. It'll make me feel better than you ever could.
Break up with your old mattress and get with Purple today. And right now, get $100 off the purchase of a mattress when you text SNOOZE to 84888. Yes, $100 off, but only when you text SNOOZE to 84888. That's SNOOZE to 84888.
Message and data rates may apply up to 5 messages a month. TNC and privacy policy found at purple.com/TNC. Reply help for help or stop to cancel.
There are many who call themselves money experts. You're listening to Money Radio, a quarter century of bringing you the best in money experts every day.
I remember the days I used to worry about my investments.
The Dow tumbled 200 points today.
Oh no, better sell. I used to panic.
Investors should brace for a scary ride.
Brace myself? I had white-knuckled fear of working till I was 97, but not anymore. I found a financial advisor with a long-term plan that works. Feels good.
Fleming Financial Services, a fee-based advisor who does what's best for you, not for the commission. With over 21 years in business, Fleming Financial Services has seen and helped clients through all kinds of market conditions. Have a long-term plan and work with someone that can help you alleviate the stress. Fleming Financial Services, your worry-free advisor. 480-632-8770. That's 480-632-8770. FlemingFinancialServices.com. Fleming Financial Services Inc. is a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Arizona and in other jurisdictions where exempted. Registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training.
Are you in the market for a new home? Before you even call a realtor, the first call you should make is to the Lund Mortgage Team to get pre-approved for a loan in just minutes. This way you know exactly what to tell your realtor you are looking for and the budget you have for your new home. Hey everybody, Mark Asher to remind you about keeping it local. As many of you know, I was born and raised in Arizona, so when I see great companies who are all about the Valley, people who grew up in the same area and call the same area I live in home, it makes me proud. It makes me want to use that company. The Lund Mortgage Team is just that. They have been in the Valley for decades and have built their name on trust, honesty, and the true meaning of hard work. They are available nights, weekends, or whenever is convenient for your family to meet. They offer the lowest rates and the lowest fees as well. It's all about you when working with the Lund Mortgage Team. So call today, 623-875-9940. You can also get pre-approved online at lundmortgageteam.com. Call today, 623-875-9940.
Go back to basics at your Burlington store and score the everyday essentials you need, like socks, underwear, denim, plus towels, sheets, and stylish storage, too. Burlington, style for everyone.
I'm Jim Chesko with Your Money Now. Several announcements from Tesla today. The electric car maker will sell a lower-price version, $35,000, of its Model 3, and said future sales would be online only. It also noted that it doesn't expect to be profitable during the first quarter. Tesla shares are tumbling today, down more than 8%. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says he has been in contact with Amazon.com executives, urging them to rethink their decision to abandon plans for a headquarters campus in Queens. But he says there's been no sign yet that the company has changed its mind. The Wall Street Journal says Cuomo spoke with Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos after the company abruptly told state officials it was scrapping the new development. Wall Street is modestly higher. The Dow Industrial is up 91 points. The Nasdaq has gained 56. The S&P is up 14. In its first quarterly report since returning as a public company, Dell Technologies posted better than expected revenue. Dell shares are up nearly 3%. Oil futures are sharply lower near the close, down more than 2%. That's Your Money Now.
If your family depends on your income and something happened to you, what would happen to them? You need life insurance, and SelectQuote can help you get it at a price you can afford.
SelectQuote found Jacob, 40, who's in excellent health, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for only $19 a month.
Not in perfect health? Don't worry.
SelectQuote found Tanya, 40, who has type 2 diabetes, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for only $32 a month.
We shop companies like Protective, Prudential, American General, and others to find you the company with the best rates. Give your family the security they need at a price you can afford.
For your free quote, call 1-800-646-9595. That's 1-800-646-9595. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-646-9595.
SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Your premium could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. And I am your host, Bob Roth, and we're on our third segment, second half. And if you missed the first half, I've got Dr. Kevin Ladin. He's a physiatrist, a.k.a. known as a pain doc. We had some incredible discussions in the first two segments, so I urge you to go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button along the top. The third button down is radio show, and you'll catch this segment or this show, and you'll be able to catch about 279 others we've been bringing to you for the last 6 years. So I teed up at the second half. I talked about I had you explain a little bit about your background and where you trained, and you went to medical school at Cornell, or you did your training at Cornell, residency at Cornell University in New York City. And there's a little something that you teed up in talking about this television show called That's Incredible. Right. And it was a show that ran actually from 1980 to 1984. It ran on ABC. John Davidson, Fran Tarkenton, and Kathy Lee Crosby were the hosts. And, and Kevin Ladin was on the show.
I was, actually. It wasn't the only show, actually.
It wasn't the only show.
A few more followed.
So I want to just be able to talk about this show because we're going to play a clip. But, Kevin, if you would do me the honor of just teeing this one up.
Sure. So, let's take you back to... I guess 1970, I was 10 years old. My grandfather, who was I was very close with, passed away unexpectedly and very suddenly. He had a massive heart attack and passed away.
How old was he?
He was only 61.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a young man. And in any event, I was 10 years old at the time, and I remember... as a 10-year-old and younger, my grandfather kind of put me on his lap and telling me how he was a pre-med student and wanted to go to medical school but had to give up his dream when the Depression hit and go to work and make a living. So, and he would kind of talk to me and encourage me and tell me what a great thing it would be if I became a doctor like he wanted to be and couldn't be. And I kind of took that along with me as I went through my life. And but he passed away in 1970, and then I went about my life. Went on to college and was at Penn State actually as a pre-med student of all things. And I remember getting a phone call from my mom on one day. I think in my sophomore year at the time. Telling me about this unbelievable thing, and I was like, what happened? My mom couldn't talk for a bit. She was so excited. And she said, you're not going to believe what happened. And I said, what? And she said, well, your father, and my dad was a real estate agent at the time, was going through the newspaper looking for people selling their homes on their own, and he came upon this ad for a home that was for sale and made an appointment to speak with the people to try to get a listing from them. And he got to the home. He was walking up the steps of the home and realized it was the same home that my grandparents had lived in before my grandfather died. Now, that was about 13 years earlier. And he was walking up the home, and he got chills up his spine, realizing this was their home. And he went into the home, and he's there for no more than about 5 minutes, and the doorbell rang. And it was the mailman with a registered letter for my grandfather. who had died 13 years earlier.
Are you kidding me?
No.
I got chills.
Totally serious. I know. I have chills right now thinking about it.
And just happenstance, your father happened to be
just
there.
Happenstance. Complete coincidence. And he and actually there's more to the story. We probably don't have enough time right now, but he retrieved the letter from the mailman. The mailman was about to leave because the people who lived there didn't know my grandparents and had not recognized the name, and they were about to tell him to leave, and my dad happened to overhear the name mentioned by the mailman, and he stopped the mailman and he signed for the letter, and it was a final notice from a bank in Philadelphia where my grandfather had opened an account, years, probably 2 decades earlier, but no one else knew about it, or it had been forgotten about. And it was a final notice from the bank about an account that was about to be forfeited to the state for inactivity. And
wow,
yeah.
Should we play it now, or you want to?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
So Wes, let it roll.
In 1931, Nathan Stein dreamed of becoming a doctor, but he couldn't afford the cost of medical school. Today, that dream is shared by his grandson, Kevin Ladin.
But Kevin faced the same financial dilemma that his grandfather did during the Depression. That's when the incredible happened to the Ladin family.
The Ladins share warm and loving memories of Nathan Stein.
Before he died in 1970, Nathan expressed hope that someday one of his grandchildren would become a doctor.
Nathan's wife, Ethel, his daughter, Sandy, and his son-in-law, Sherman Ladin, wondered how they could ever afford to send Nathan's favorite grandson, Kevin, to medical school and fulfill Nathan's dream.
Nat would have made a wonderful doctor. The thing was that his mother had become ill, and this was during the Depression, and he just had to go to work. There was nothing that he could do but do that. So he went to work, and that was the end of us ever becoming a doctor. Nat was a wonderful person. He was kind, thoughtful.
The memory of my grandfather gives me all the more motivation for medicine, because I realized that his desire in life was to be a physician. And the fact that he wanted it so badly and could not pursue his goal, and the fact that I realized that he wanted it for me also, and for his children, just gives me more desire to go through with this.
Medical school was made possible by an extraordinary coincidence. Kevin's father, who works as a real estate agent, will never forget that day.
This one afternoon, we were very, very slow, and I proceeded to leaf through the newspaper, looking for people who might be advertising on their own. And I stumbled across this number, and I proceeded to call him. Mr. Topperov, who was the party that I had called, had said to me, he said, "You seem like a very nice man, although I've spoken to maybe 20 other brokers. I would like to see you in the event that I don't sell my house over this weekend." I had arranged for 2 different appointments, and each time I had to cancel. Finally, we had come up with a time to make it for 11 o'clock that morning.
An eerie feeling overcame Sherman when he arrived. He couldn't believe his eyes.
It never dawned on me when she had given me the address that I would be going to the house that my father-in-law and mother-in-law had lived in 13 and a half years before. And when I had walked up the stairs, chills just went right through my body.
Nathan Stein was living in this house when he died 13 years ago. Was it more than just a coincidence that brought his son-in-law back to the house now owned by Sidney and Dina Topperov?
It was a very strange feeling. I was looking for things that brought back memories of their living there. And although the house was rearranged with different furnishings, it still brought on the same familiarity that it had for years in my mind. This was my mother-in-law and father-in-law's home.
Well, how about that?
My father-in-law passed away 13 and a half years ago. And when he passed away, my mother-in-law left. But this was their home. We used to sit in the dining room and have dinner. I sat in this kitchen and had breakfast with my son and my daughter and my wife and my father-in-law and mother-in-law.
While Sherman reminisced, the postman delivered what was to be a very special letter.
I don't think I was in the house for any more than 5 or 10 minutes, and the front doorbell rang. Excuse me. And it was a postman. And I heard him talking to Mr. Toporov, and he said, I have a registered letter for Mr. Nathan Stein. Mr. Toporov had said to the postman, there's nobody by that name living here. Well, I jumped out of my seat. I couldn't believe it. That's my father-in-law. And I had to stop the postman. I told him it was my father-in-law's letter, and he stopped, and I signed for the registered letter. And there it was on the envelope, PNB Bank. And I proceeded to open the envelope. And I had known right from that moment that it must be an account that my mother-in-law was not aware of.
It was a final notice sent out by the bank.
The law used to be that if an account was inactive for a period of 21 years, the balance was escheated or turned over to the state of Pennsylvania. The new law, which went into effect in January of 1983, cut that period back to 7 years. And now, if an account is inactive for 7 years, the balance is turned over to the state. In this instance, we sent a registered letter to the last address we had on record, which was an address that was given to us approximately 19 and a half years ago when the account was opened.
The account belonged to Ethel and Nathan Stein. The bank had no record of Ethel's forwarding address.
Their 13-year search to find Ethel had miraculously ended only weeks before the money would have been forfeited to the state.
The account contained over $15,000.
This is going to be for Kevin's education. I always felt that this was Nat's wish, that he would have wanted his grandson.
So, Kevin.
Yeah.
Wow, that's got to bring back a lot of emotions.
It sure does. It's an amazing story, and even now,
that's like 36 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, even now, it chokes me up to even hear it again. But the even more amazing coincidence about that story is that the amount that was in that check that they just mentioned, the 15,000, I forget the exact number, but was to the penny the amount of my first year's medical school tuition, to the exact penny.
Wow. To the exact, I got chills.
Penny. That's true.
Wow. You know what, for our listening audience, and so many are listening in who are trying to save up funds for their children or grandchildren, and hopefully have this dream come true. Your grandfather, Nathan Stein?
That's correct, yeah.
Had his dream come true. Unfortunately, he didn't see it here on Earth. He saw it from the heavens above.
Yeah, he did, but it happened. So.
It did. Well, we're going to take a break right now. I'm getting a little emotional and misty-eyed as well. Kevin, thank you for sharing that story with
Absolutely.
us.
My pleasure.
You've been listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. We're down 3 segments. We got one more to go. We got Dr. Kevin Ladin here in the house. He's a pain doc, otherwise known as a physiatrist. We'll be right back.
Are you sick and tired of hearing, don't buy an annuity until you've spoken to the so-called experts? If so, call 800-957-5604, extension 200, to learn the concept of a principal-protected, low-cost, new generation annuity and the various options. Listen to Secured Financial Solutions every Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m. on this station to prevent a derailed retirement and from purchasing the wrong annuity, especially the high-risk, high-fee variable annuity and complex proprietary index annuities. Secured Financial Solutions will help you understand the difference between true stated guarantees and non-guaranteed returns. Call 800-957-5604, extension 200, and visit dreamretire.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, and Registered Investment Advisor. VCM and Secured Financial Solutions, LLC are independent of each other. Annuities are insurance products, backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the insuring insurance company. Information provided is not intended as tax or legal advice and should not be relied on as such. You are encouraged to seek tax or legal advice from an independent professional.
The Renaissance Festival is back! Huzzah! Weekends now through March 31st.
It's awesome. I love it. It's great for the family. All our kids love it. That's why we come here.
Good times can be had by all.
It's the best time we have every year. It's a great time for everyone.
Join us at the Renaissance Festival! Huzzah!
Come and have a turkey leg. The Renaissance Festival is back! Huzzah! Weekends now through March 31st. Discount tickets available at Fry's in Fry's Marketplace. Or online, renfestinfo.com. Presented by Delta Airlines, Fry's, Pepsi, Budweiser, and Guinness.
You gotta come see it. You come out here and you really have a good time. My kids love it.
There's lots of shops to go to. Hair
Renaissance Festival when you bring 2 new books to donate to Kids Need to Read. That's right, get free admission to the Renaissance Festival when you bring 2 new books to donate to Kids Need to Read. See you this weekend. Huzzah!
Go back to basics at your Burlington store and score the everyday essentials you need, like socks, underwear, denim, plus towels, sheets, and stylish storage, too. Burlington, style for everyone.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you, and it is Friday, Cowbell Friday. A little lover boy taking us out. Thank you very much, Wes, and really thank you for playing, Kevin, that's incredible segment. You have to believe in divine intervention. You have to believe in there's a God, there's a purpose. I mean, so many things happened in that third segment. If you missed it, you got to go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com, click on the media button, drop down to the third button for radio show, and you have to hear that story, an incredible story. The fact that your father happened to be there when that mailman arrived for that final certified letter. And then the fact that your tuition was the exact same amount.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing. Thank you for opening up your heart and your sharing your story. And, as I said as we closed, so many of us that listen here on the show, this is the Money Radio Show. We're planning for our children and our grandchildren. And right. Your grandfather had this plan, and he wanted you to go to medical school. And here you are, 37 years later,
still going strong.
Still going strong and practicing medicine. And for those that, don't or want to reach out to Kevin, he is with his practice is called Comprehensive Pain Specialists. And he's over there on 7th Street. You can reach his office at 602-246-9002. I gave him the plug. He didn't ask me to do that, but he's an incredible pain doctor.
I appreciate that very much.
As we get ready to wind up our show, we really only have about 4 minutes. I want you to really drive the show right now and really talk to our listening audience about pain and what signs they should be looking for, what remedies there are. What are some of the the misleading misnomers out there, old wives' tales that don't really work, how to combat pain. So I want you to leave with our listening audience how to really deal with pain.
Sure. So I don't want the audience to think that the use of opioids is the only option for pain, because that's not true. Pain is a very diverse, multifaceted condition. And there obviously is no one cure, one thing that works. There's no one cure for pain of all types. There's various treatments that depends on the type of pain the person's having. But there are all kinds of interventional treatment options for pain. There are injections. There are ablative procedures. Those are procedures where we use a very specialized type of treatment that can relieve pain for long periods of time, depending on the type of pain it is. For example, back pain, there may be an ablative procedure that may work for a particular individual. We have anything from spinal cord stimulation, which is a very advanced pain management approach to treating people who have had back surgery that hasn't worked well. We call that a failed back surgery syndrome. To pain due to amputation, or pain due to peripheral neuropathy, or all kinds of things. What I would say is that don't think that that there's just one option. There may be many options for pain that haven't been explored that we can help with.
And seek help. I mean, really, don't try to treat yourself. I mean, one of the things I learned about ibuprofen is, you can't take too much of this stuff because it'll eat away at your kidneys and your internal organs.
Very true.
Go see a professional.
And another, you mentioned ibuprofen. One of the things that people may not realize is Tylenol. can be very dangerous if it's taken at high dosages, at dosages that exceed the recommended dose. Sometimes people think Tylenol is a safe drug. Not necessarily, not if it's overused. So got to be careful with that.
No, you definitely have to be careful with the pain medications you take. And, you know, I can't thank you enough, Kevin, for being here on the show and really talking to us about pain. And as I shared at the top of the show, half of Americans are passing away, dying in this excruciating pain.
And that's not necessary, and that's unacceptable, quite honestly.
It is unacceptable. Yeah. And you, our listening audience, if you have a family member or friend that is suffering from pain and maybe even actively dying, you need to seek out professionals that can help you help them manage the pain. You know, I want to give a big shout-out to my Papa Bear. I know he's listening right now. Sheldon, a.k.a. Noodles Roth, who has actually sat in that chair over there, Kevin, before. He's been on the show a couple times. He's recovering from chronic pain.
Yeah.
And I know you were doing some advising for him, and, you know, he's on the mend, and he's getting better, and he's sought out some treatment protocols that are hopefully, with a little luck, is going to be remedying his situation.
Absolutely. We're all pulling for him.
We are all pulling for Noodles. So what do you got planned for the weekend? You going to take in any spring training?
Not this weekend. This weekend's kind of a lay-low weekend for me. Not sure what we're doing yet, but I'm sure we'll find some fun.
Well, good.
Fun in the sun, hopefully.
Well, you know, the weather's supposed to be really good.
Yeah, that's finally.
And this is why we live here, right?
That's right.
We came here for this weather. It's spring training, and yes, there's a lot of traffic out here, but you know what? This is...
Hey, it's better than L.A.
or San Francisco.
Remember that.
There you go.
That's right.
You've been listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. I've had Dr. Kevin Ladin here in the studio. Kevin, thank you very much for being here on the show. If you want to reach out to Kevin one last time, 602-246-9002. Make it a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back next Friday.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress HomeCare Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit CypressHomeCare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.
Financial words of wisdom with Market Wrap host Mo Ansari.
There should be a little sign like there's on the side of cigarette packets. Picking tops and bottoms can be hazardous to your wealth. Don't try to do it.
It's helpful financial food for thought on your drive home with a host who tells it like it is. Market Wrap with Mo Ansari.
Catch Market Wrap on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM Monday through Friday at 5 p.m.
Money Radio 1510
and 105.3 FM.
KFNN Mesa, Phoenix, and K287BX Mesa. No matter what the temperature, even if it is the 74 degrees right now, it's always cool to be in total charge of your finances. Money Radio will tell you how. Take a look at the market. Dow up 110 points at 26,026. S&P up 17 at 2802. And NASDAQ up 62 points at 7594.
When people want to talk about money, this is the place they come to. And there's more on the way after this break for the latest news. And we begin now.